You're standing in the pet food aisle, staring at labels that all say meets AAFCO standards, and you assume that means the food is safe, tested, and approved for your cat. Here's what might surprise you. AAFCO doesn't actually certify, test, or approve a single bag of cat food. My name's Stephen Whitlow, and I'm going to walk you through what that label really means and why it matters more than you think. You're listening to the Pet Parent Podcast. Quick note before we dive in. Everything you're about to hear is fully researched and written by real people who know this stuff inside and out, but the voice delivering it is AI generated. Just wanted to be upfront about that. If you've been listening to the show for a while, thank you, seriously. And if this is your first episode, I'm glad you found us. We release new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering all the pet care topics that actually matter to you. Today, we're breaking down AAFCO certification, what it really means for cat food, and why you should care. Let's jump in. Let me clear up the biggest misconception first. AAFCO doesn't make cat food, test cat food, or certify individual products. The Association of American Feed Control Officials is a regulatory body made up of state and federal officials who establish nutritional standards and labeling guidelines for pet foods sold in the United States. When you see formulated to meet AAFCO standards on a cat food label, you're looking at the manufacturer's claim that their recipe contains the minimum nutrients AAFCO says cats need at specific life stages. Think of AAFCO as the organization that writes the rulebook. Manufacturers then follow that rulebook and make their own claims about meeting those standards. The Association of American Feed Control Officials updates these nutritional profiles periodically based on current research about feline nutrition. Their standards specify minimum levels and sometimes maximum levels for proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that cats require. These requirements differ for kittens, adult cats, and cats at different life stages. Here's what usually surprises people. AAFCO itself doesn't inspect facilities, conduct quality testing, or verify that a product actually contains what the label claims. That responsibility falls to individual state feed control officials and the FDA. AAFCO just provides the framework everyone else uses. Now, let's talk about how AAFCO cat food standards actually work. AAFCO establishes nutritional adequacy through two distinct methods, and understanding the difference between them matters when you're evaluating cat food options. The formulation method is the simpler approach. A manufacturer analyzes their recipe on paper, calculates the nutrient content based on ingredients, and determines whether it meets AAFCO's nutrient profiles. If the numbers add up, they can print formulated to meet AAFCO cat food nutrient profiles on the label. This method doesn't require any actual feeding trials. It's all theoretical math based on ingredient composition. The feeding trial method is more rigorous and, frankly, more reassuring. The manufacturer actually feeds the food to real cats for a minimum of 26 weeks, about 6 months, according to AAFCO's protocols. They monitor the cat's health, weight, blood work, and overall condition throughout the trial. If the cats maintain good health on this diet alone, the product earns the statement, "Animal feeding tests using AAFCO procedures substantiate that this product provides complete and balanced nutrition." I've seen plenty of cat owners gloss over which method was used, but the feeding trial statement tells you this food has actually kept cats healthy in controlled conditions, not just on a spreadsheet. Products that pass feeding trials can include the phrase complete and balanced on their packaging. There's also a third category worth mentioning, foods labeled for intermittent or supplemental feeding only. These don't meet AAFCO standards for complete nutrition and shouldn't be your cat's sole diet. You'll often see this on treats, toppers, or specialty products meant to complement complete foods. The life stage designation matters too. AAFCO divides cats into these categories: growth and reproduction, which covers kittens and pregnant or nursing mothers, adult maintenance for adult cats past kitten stage, and all life stages, which meets the more demanding requirements for both growth and adult maintenance. A food formulated for adult maintenance won't provide adequate nutrition for a growing kitten. The protein, fat, and mineral requirements are different. Similarly, feeding a high-calorie kitten formula to a sedentary adult cat can lead to weight gain. When you understand what AAFCO cat food labeling is actually communicating, you can match the product to your cat's specific life stage. Moving on to why AAFCO standards matter for your cat. Here's the practical significance. AAFCO standards ensure your cat gets the baseline nutrition needed to survive. Cats are obligate carnivores with specific nutritional requirements that differ substantially from dogs or humans. They need preformed vitamin A because they can't convert beta-carotene like we do. They need taurine, an amino acid critical for heart and eye health. They need arachidonic acid, an essential fatty acid, and higher protein levels than most other pets. Without AAFCO's nutritional profiles, manufacturers could market nutritionally inadequate products, and pet parents wouldn't have any reference point for evaluating them. Before these standards existed in their current form, cases of taurine deficiency causing dilated cardiomyopathy in cats were far more common. AAFCO's minimum taurine requirements, 0.1% for dry food and 0.2% for wet food on a dry matter basis, helped address this issue. But, and this is important, meeting AAFCO standards represents a minimum threshold, not a guarantee of optimal quality. Two foods can both meet AAFCO standards while using drastically different ingredient quality, digestibility levels, and manufacturing processes. A premium food using named meat proteins and whole food ingredients can meet AAFCO standards. So can a budget food using meat byproducts, grain fragments, and synthetic vitamin premixes. I've worked with enough pet owners to know that AAFCO compliance gives you a starting point, not a finish line. It tells you the food won't leave your cat nutritionally deficient in obvious ways, but it doesn't tell you about ingredient sourcing, bioavailability of nutrients, or long-term health outcomes beyond basic survival. This is why veterinarians, despite recommending AAFCO-compliant foods as a baseline, also emphasize factors like your individual cat's response to the food. Coat quality, energy levels, stool consistency, and long-term health markers matter more than any label statement. When you're shopping for AAFCO-compliant cat food, you'll find compliance across all major food formats and formulations. Understanding how AAFCO standards apply to different product types helps you make informed comparisons. Wet cat food formulated to meet AAFCO standards must account for moisture content when calculating nutrient percentages. Since canned food contains 70 to 80% water, the actual protein and fat concentrations on an as-fed basis look lower than dry food. But converting to a dry matter basis shows the real nutrient density. AAFCO standards use dry matter calculations, so a wet food with 10% protein as fed might actually provide 40% protein on a dry matter basis, well above AAFCO's minimums. Dry cat food, or kibble, typically finds it easier to meet AAFCO protein minimums due to lower moisture content. The challenge with dry formulations is ensuring adequate animal-based protein rather than relying heavily on plant proteins like corn gluten meal, which provide amino acid profiles less suitable for obligate carnivores. Both formulation and feeding trial methods are common in the dry food category. Grain-free formulations became popular in recent years, and AAFCO standards apply equally regardless of grain inclusion. A grain-free food must still meet the same protein, fat, vitamin, and mineral requirements as grain-inclusive options. The grain-free designation doesn't automatically mean higher quality. It just indicates carbohydrate sources come from potatoes, peas, or other non-grain ingredients instead of rice or wheat. Life stage-specific formulas must meet different AAFCO profiles. Kitten foods need higher minimum protein, 30% versus 26% for adults on a dry matter basis, higher fat, and carefully balanced calcium and phosphorus ratios to support bone development without causing skeletal problems. Senior cat foods, interestingly, follow the same AAFCO adult maintenance profile. There's no separate senior category. But manufacturers often adjust recipes based on common senior health concerns like kidney support or reduced calories. Prescription and therapeutic diets present an interesting case. Many therapeutic formulas don't carry AAFCO nutritional adequacy statements because they're intentionally formulated to restrict certain nutrients for medical management, like reduced protein for kidney disease or restricted minerals for urinary health. These diets require veterinary oversight and fall outside standard AAFCO nutritional profiles by design. Let's cover some questions that come up a lot. Does AAFCO approval mean cat food is high quality? No. AAFCO doesn't approve individual cat food products. They only establish minimum nutritional standards. A food meeting AAFCO standards has adequate nutrient levels to prevent deficiencies, but this doesn't address ingredient quality, digestibility, sourcing practices, or manufacturing standards. Two foods can both meet AAFCO requirements while differing dramatically in quality. Look for feeding trial statements rather than formulation statements. Examine the ingredient list for named meat proteins in the first few positions and consider your individual cat's response to the food over time. AAFCO compliance is your baseline filter, not your only evaluation criterion when choosing cat food. What's the difference between AAFCO formulation and feeding trials? Foods meeting AAFCO standards through formulation are created based on calculated nutrient analysis of ingredients. The manufacturer does the math to ensure the recipe theoretically contains required nutrients, but never actually feeds it to cats before selling it. Feeding trial products are tested on real cats for at least 26 weeks following AAFCO protocols, with veterinary monitoring of health markers, body condition, and blood work throughout. Feeding trials provide evidence that cats actually thrive on the food, rather than just mathematical assurance that nutrients exist in the recipe. When you see feeding tests using AAFCO procedures on a label, that product has been through more rigorous validation than formulation-only foods. Can cats eat dog food that meets AAFCO dog food standards? Absolutely not as a regular diet. AAFCO standards for cats differ significantly from dog standards because cats have unique nutritional requirements as obligate carnivores. Cat foods must contain taurine, arachidonic acid, preformed vitamin A, higher protein levels, and different mineral balances than dog foods. A dog food meeting AAFCO dog standards will lack adequate taurine, potentially causing heart disease and blindness in cats over time, along with other deficiencies. Occasional accidental consumption won't cause immediate harm, but feeding dog food to cats regularly leads to serious nutritional deficiencies, regardless of whether that dog food meets AAFCO standards for dogs. Cats need cat-specific nutrition based on AAFCO cat food nutrient profiles. How often does AAFCO update cat food nutritional standards? AAFCO reviews and updates their nutrient profiles periodically, though not on a fixed schedule. The most recent significant update to cat food nutrient profiles occurred in 2014, when AAFCO modified several vitamin and mineral requirements based on current nutritional research. These updates happen when new scientific evidence suggests changes to minimum or maximum nutrient levels would better support feline health. Between major updates, AAFCO's Pet Food Committee meets regularly to discuss emerging research and potential modifications. When standards change, manufacturers typically receive a transition period to reformulate products before new requirements take effect. The infrequent updates mean AAFCO standards represent established nutritional science rather than cutting-edge research, providing stability for manufacturers but sometimes lagging behind the latest findings. Are expensive cat foods more likely to exceed AAFCO minimums? Not necessarily. Price doesn't directly correlate with exceeding AAFCO minimums, since both budget and premium foods typically meet these baseline standards easily. Where price differences show up is in ingredient quality, digestibility, sourcing practices, and often in significantly exceeding minimum targets for key nutrients, like protein from animal sources. A premium food might provide 45% protein from named meat sources, where AAFCO requires only 26%, using highly digestible ingredients that deliver better bioavailability. Budget foods often meet AAFCO standards using lower quality protein sources, meat byproducts, and synthetic vitamin premixes, while staying closer to minimum requirements. Both technically satisfy AAFCO standards, but your cat's actual nutritional outcomes differ. Rather than focusing on price, look for specific feeding trial statements, examine ingredient lists for quality markers, and monitor your individual cat's health response. When you pick up a bag or can of cat food and see that AAFCO statement, you now know you're looking at a baseline nutritional threshold, a minimum standard that prevents obvious deficiencies but doesn't guarantee optimal nutrition. What is AAFCO cat food compliance worth? It's worth using as your first filter, eliminating products that don't meet basic nutritional requirements, but it shouldn't be your only consideration. The feeding trial statement carries more weight than formulation alone. Named meat proteins in the first ingredients matter more than generic byproducts. Your cat's individual response, energy levels, coat condition, healthy weight maintenance, and digestive health tells you more than any label statement. AAFCO standards give us a common language for evaluating pet food and protect cats from nutritionally inadequate products. But building optimal feline nutrition means going beyond these minimums, understanding your cat's specific needs at their current life stage, and choosing foods that support long-term health rather than just preventing deficiency diseases. Start with AAFCO compliance as your foundation, then build upward from there based on quality indicators, your cat's individual needs, and veterinary guidance when health issues are present. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Pet Parent Podcast. We've got new episodes coming your way every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so there's always something fresh. If you got something out of this one, I'd really appreciate it if you left a 5-star rating and wrote a quick review. It sounds small, but it genuinely helps other pet parents discover the show when they're searching for reliable information. And go ahead and hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss an episode. We'll catch you next time.